Good evening, everyone. Welcome to Fanyana Live. And on today's segment, we're going to be talking about why teachers are leaving the profession. Now, could that be for unruly children? What about a flawed system, school system at that? Perhaps it's the unsupportive parents, social media. But here on today, we have the Jamie Mays. She's an author, advocated for children. She's an accomplished, poet, author, single mother, serial entrepreneur, and the list goes on and on until the break of dawn. Welcome to the platform, none other than the Jamie Mays. I'm so happy to have you, my sister. So, my first question is this. So, what inspired you to become an educator?
So I get asked this question a lot. How did, of all the places I could land, what made me decide to land in education?
Right.
And it was actually kind of by accident. Initially, when I was growing up, I've always had an idea of a future, right?
Okay.
And so for many years, I started off wanting to be an attorney, specifically civil rights.
I can see that.
I was adamant. So I started off with that goal.
Yeah.
And then when I got to around high school, I wanted to actually be a family and adolescent therapist. And I wanted to open up my own practice, and I wanted to teach beauty and love from the inside out. So I would actually have like a residence place where you could get your therapeutic treatment, but also learn about like self-care. At that time, the phrase self-care wasn't popular. So, we would have like a salon for women to get manicures and do all types of things.
Right.
And then basically once you go home, you're completely like rejuvenated, and we try to help you get to a path of success.
Okay, so my treatment, I like it.
When I got to probably my later years of high school, I started wondering, what were the other possibilities? Now, I always knew I wanted to write because I've been writing and speaking since I was 16 years old, almost 16. So I always knew that was going to be a component of it. I always thought I would write a book, but I did think that would be my primary profession. So I went to college, started off in psychology. Did not like it.
I wonder why.
It was just it was boring to me. So
a lot of reading.
I didn't enjoy it. And as much as I love reading, I just couldn't find my interest in that.
Well, you weren't passionate about it.
And so by chance, one of my friend's roommates asked me to come to her classroom and teach her students poetry.
Okay.
Because she heard about the work I had done in the past. And I was in Baton Rouge that time at LSU. Went into taught the kids poetry, and it was a hit. She literally talked about how it changed the nature of her classroom for the rest of the year. So I said to myself, well, maybe I can donate a little bit of time to the teaching profession as my way to kind of give back, because I really felt connected to these children. I felt like I was having a chance to inspire children the way that so many educators inspired me as, a young black girl growing up impoverished.
Okay.
Single parent home. I wanted the chance to give that back. And in particular to kids who looked like me, kids who were in situations I had been through, and really just kids that needed to know somebody believes in you. So I changed my major to English anyway, and people were always asking, like, what are you going to do with an English degree?
Right.
So that had already made me start asking a lot of questions as well. And so I think a part of me as well kind of said, well, the classroom is a place where I can definitely figure that out. And it's also kind of like a safe haven because people always need teachers. So I ended up going to teach at Ostroma High for my first year in Baton Rouge, and it was not an easy journey.
Well, you're going to have to tell me about that journey because so many people are leaving.
Yes.
The teachers are leaving. They're leaving in droves and they're not coming back.
Yes.
So you got to tell me about the classroom.
So I will say this. My experience at Ostroma was what made me stay.
Okay.
And I would not say per se my colleagues, it was the children. When I got there, I just really felt like I was at home.
Okay.
I worked at what was classified as an inner city school in Baton Rouge. Estruma is a couple of roads over from the famous Plank Road. And so people who have been to Baton Rouge and know Baton Rouge life know that means that, Estruma was a tough place to be.
Okay.
And especially during the time I worked there, which was around 2000, I think 7 or 8. But the most wonderful thing was my students made me feel like they had been waiting for me.
So this is a
They had
predominantly
been
black school? All black?
Pretty much all
Okay.
black. Like they had been waiting for me. Like they had been waiting for somebody that believed in them, waiting for somebody that had fresh new energy. That's how I felt, because when I came in there, my students were just like, Miss Mays, let's do this, let's do that. I ended up being over the student council. I ended up being co-sponsor of the STEP team.
Right.
I threw one of a school dance, despite the fact that the school had stopped having dances. I convinced the school to let me throw one for my kids, and we threw a successful school dance.
Right.
So all of those different things, ended up meeting parents outside of school, working well with them. I even had one time I took a group of girls from my classroom, like out for a girls' night. We went to the movies, and then we went out to have dinner at a Italian buffet they had in Baton Rouge. And so just doing things like that, I took kids that said they had never been outside of the city limits to a camp where we were able to just talk more about the traumas that that we've all gone through, and how to overcome those challenges. And I worked really closely with kids that were struggling with reading to really try to not only empower them to believe that they could, become sufficient readers.
But what year was this? You're saying that the children...
So this was around 2007, 2008.
And the children really couldn't read?
I had kids that were in, I taught 9th and 10th grade, and I had kids that were reading on 2nd grade level.
Why is that, you think?
3rd grade level.
I must ask you, why do you think, and now we're talking about, we're in the black community, why do you think that children on the 9th and 10th grade reading on the 2nd and 1st grade
And let
level?
me clarify, that would not be the only time that I saw that. I saw this throughout my teaching career. So as we know, I was in the classroom for nearly 13 years.
That's right.
So that was not the only time. I saw that at nearly every school I went to, I worked at.
Jamie, well, I have to ask you, who's to blame?
So, I think over the years, for me, it was always really easy for us to be able to point the finger to say, well, it's the parents here, or it's the teacher's fault, or it's the administration's fault, when in reality, it's a combination of things. It really is a combination of things.
You're going to have to break that down.
We have parents who are not helping with the literacy at home, who are not reinforcing the things that we're doing in class. We have parents who are overworked. They don't have the time. We have parents who themselves don't know how to read.
Right.
So how can you teach your child to read or help your child read if you don't know how to read that well?
So what about tutoring? What about after school programs? Now let me tell you, when I was growing up, we had after school programs.
So let's talk about that. Let's talk about our teachers as well, right quick.
That's right.
We have educators who have classes that are massively overpacked with students.
They are.
I remember the year I had 41 kids in one classroom.
41.
We were literally standing room only. So, classes that are overpacked like that, how was I supposed to teach English in a Title I school when I had 41 kids in one class? You have kids that have an extreme need for literacy support, but teachers have so many kids that you really just don't have the time in one class period to work with those kids as needed.
And it's not like the teachers can actually work one-on-one with the children.
Not when you have... Even if you have 15 kids in a class and you only have 55 minutes, or if you have a block, it's just really hard to know exactly how to fill those things out. And then let's talk about the fact that you have state-based curriculums that are not based on meeting student needs. They're based on the demand that this disconnected system is putting in place to meet performance goals.
So
and those don't count things like what challenges are impoverished kids having, what challenges might a child have who's going through a family divorce, what challenge might kids have if they don't have access to books. And when we talk about things like tutoring, it sounds simplistic because now it's a common thing for the most part. But please understand that there are schools that don't have, when you get a lot of these tutoring programs put in place, your schools get approved for grants and things like that because your teachers who work after school are compensated. down to a lot of your staff members that are working
Right.
uncompensated. So every school does not have after school tutoring. I worked at schools that did not have an after school tutoring program. So that alone is a gift. That's not part of a right to education. So, tutoring is a luxury in many cases.
Right.
Because if my school is not providing free services, then how else do I access support? Now, the good thing is here in 2022, we have all kind of online programs that can help you.
Okay.
But our question becomes, do all of our children have ample support to guide and direct them? We can make a lot of statements about, how you can log on to your phone for TikTok, you can log on for social media. But the fact of the matter is, when we're talking about children, they still need guidance and structure. So we can't always rely on a kid to take responsibility enough to say, oh, I'm going to log on to the library system and get help because I'm just that type of person taking initiative. It's just not always going to be that way. They do need guidance, structure, and support. And because of the issues we just talked about, are my parents working a lot? Can my mom read? Is education an important concept in my home? Do I have a sufficient teacher who is interested? Because let's be real, we have teachers as well that are exhausted, worn out. So do we have a teacher that has the capacity to go the extra mile to ensure you're doing this at home? Do we have teachers that have enough time? Do we have teachers that have enough space to ensure that? And if a school tutoring-based program is not available, then what initiatives can we develop to ensure kids are getting those needs met outside of the class? So it's not so easy for us. A lot of times it's easy for us to be able to say, well, we have tutoring and tutoring works here and tutoring works there. But tutoring is a luxury for schools. It is not a guarantee. Every school, even every school in this community, does not have a tutoring program.
No. Well, then, so I have to ask you this question. So you were talking about the curriculum for the state. We know that they turned that into, was it Common Core?
Yes.
Because even I, as a parent, I have to say this, everyone. Even I, as a parent, I remember my daughter would come home when I was growing up. Mathematical equations. We basically let's talk about it. Mathematical equations. It's much easier for me doing algebraic expressions. It was very easier for us to do it. Most multiplication we learned on memorization. But then they decided, I was like, ain't nothing simple about this. I said, I'm gonna need to go on Google.
Absolutely.
I'm gonna need to go on YouTube.
Absolutely. Khan Academy.
And Khan Academy they gave us all of the answers. But the thing is, so we went virtual in 2019, going into 2020, 2021. Do you think that shed light on what our teachers, or mainly really what our parents were able to see what the teachers in doing?
Let me tell you something. Virtual
Seriously.
school was the biggest epiphany ever, okay? Honey, let me tell you,
serious.
My phone was going crazy. Do you understand me?
I know it was.
Virtual school was the biggest epiphany ever. Do you understand?
Serious?
I mean, parents were blowing the phone up like, I don't know how they do this. Can somebody come get this child and take them to school? Because first of all, it wasn't even just about whether or not parents understood the content. It was also about having to take care of that academic responsibility all day.
And
what else? What?
Well, I'm also looking at the fact that, when it was during COVID, parents had an 8 to 5. They had 9 to 5s. Nobody was actually at home with the child to see that the child was actually doing the work.
Absolutely.
So whenever the school would contact the parent, they said, well, you know what? Your child has an F in my class because they were not online. They were actually sleeping in my class. They had their heads down. So to me, I'm not going to necessarily blame the parent. I'm not going to necessarily blame the school. But there is something that's going on that we're actually missing, Jamie.
Absolutely.
Because the kids are no longer enthused about education.
And the pandemic.
What is the problem?
And the pandemic actually highlighted that.
It did. It did.
That. Because I would say even when I was growing up, I would be terrified not to make sure I was doing what my mom expected me to do.
Right.
Make sure I wasn't taking care of academic business.
We used to
and
get
things
whooped
like
though.
that.
We got whooped. We got whooped for grades.
Exactly. I mean, you
Mom,
would.
don't you bring no F on your report
You
card.
better not bring a failing grade in here or
That's
it's going
right.
down.
That's right.
And then if you were anything like me, you just had, you just didn't want to see a bad grade.
That's
By
right.
the time I got to junior high, I did not want to see a poor grade. But I think that one of the biggest things is that, number one, children have a lot of different challenges now that we didn't have back then.
But Jamie, what are those challenges? You got to speak on those challenges.
Number one is going to be social media. And people don't like to hear this, but absolutely. We didn't have cell phones available where we readily had the internet in our hand all day long. Mm-hmm. All day long. I'm a whole grown up, and there are days when I'm like, girl, how long have I been looking at TikTok videos? Let me get off of here and get some work done. So that's number one. We have to be honest about the fact that social media, the internet, has played a significant role in it. And in addition to that, the messages that you get from the internet, which push the belief that all you have to do is make the right video and go viral. Education doesn't matter. I don't need education to start a business. I don't need an education to be successful. This is a message that is being pushed. We don't want to admit it, but it is one that is pushed through the airwaves right now. And so that's one thing. A second thing is the fact that we have parents that are so focused on other things that there is not enough parental involvement in education.
Why is there not enough parental involvement?
Because there are so many other things that consume our time. And
people
don't want to hear this, but we have become a money-driven society where material things matter more than the value of quality education.
Talk about it.
And that can be an uncomfortable thing to hear, right there. But it's a very true statement.
Yes, it is.
I say this as an educator, and I say this as a parenting consultant who has had this conversation over and over again, that we have to learn how to differentiate between what things will make a difference in the rest of our kids' lives and what things only make them look good or feel good for the moment. Education may not be a comfortable process.
Right.
Education may not look like a Gucci belt. Education may not look like the fresh new pair of Jordans.
Right.
But education is a life-saving tool that can transform generational wealth for your children.
Okay.
And so there are sacrifices that come with that. And unfortunately, we very much so live in a society that pushes money and material things more than it pushes education.
Yes,
and a lot of us as parents have become caught up in that thing.
And we're caught up in what? The worldwide web.
Caught up in the
it's
world.
It's a spider web.
Is that is pushed out.
That's what it is.
Right?
So there is an agenda.
And then the idea that, I have to have this particular house. I have to have this particular amount of money. I have to make sure my child looks this way. I have to make sure my child looks that way.
But that's society standards.
If we have a beautiful package, it means nothing if we don't have something valuable inside.
Right. You have to have substance. Exactly.
And for us, and when it comes to education, that means the power to think for yourself.
That's right.
The power to understand and interpret things by yourself, and the power to dictate your own life in a positive and meaningful way.
So what if the internet was just it was developed just to control the world, and that you don't think for yourself? Because that's what I really believe right now.
I tell people
everybody is online.
You always have to be stronger than what you allow influences to be over you.
Use that word, woman, influence.
What you allow influences to be over you. So we have to make the conscious decision, because we can either use things for positive or we can use it for negative. Right. As a classroom teacher, one of the things that I started to do was actually figure out how I can implement the social media world into my classroom.
Okay.
So by the time I left, TikTok was not booming for me the way that it is now.
Yeah.
We were Instagram. And I remember the time when we were studying Shakespeare, and I gave my kids a simple assignment to find a picture online of Shakespeare and then research 10 facts about him, put the post, and then I gave them 3 hashtags they needed to use.
Okay.
And so if they turned it in, it was worth 100 points, right? So you're indicating your ability to perform research, your ability to use technology, and your ability to apply and retain information, because that's what you were going to be doing.
Right.
And I had almost 100% response on that from my students. They either had to print it out and bring it in, or they could send it to my school email. And nearly all of my kids found a way to make that happen. There was a time when I allowed my students to choose different ways that they would present their story on Romeo and Juliet. Their interpretation. So you could do a cartoon, you could do a PowerPoint presentation, you can do a dramatic interpretation, performance in the class, but make it in modern lingo. You could write a song. I didn't care how you chose to do it. I just had a list of criteria that you had to meet in order to earn your grade. Not one child missed turning it in. So what I'm saying about that is, when we talk about even the internet,
okay,
and its presence, there's nothing we can do about it. We can't get rid of technology.
You won't.
And technology has had its pros. It has brought the ability to succeed right here to your fingertips. It has given us access to share meaningful messages like this with the
Right.
world. But I think what we have to take control over is learning how to be involved with our kids instead of isolating certain things from them.
Okay.
If we start to tell our kids, let's integrate this into our learning experience, we will see a transformation take place in how our kids feel about education. And the fact of the matter is, as much as we want to, like, you know, a lot of times in education, you know, we still have a lot of educators who even struggle with, you know, saying, how is it that I can get the kids to buy in? I'm the teacher, you should just come here and do. But true education involves our kids having a buy-in.
Okay.
You understand what I'm saying?
Right.
It involves having parents to have a buy-in to what we are selling. And what we are selling is what? Education and a future. But if people don't buy into it, if our parents don't buy into it, if our kids don't buy into it, then we cannot convince them that it's important.
Right.
Now, is it the teacher's fault? It's not. That's just the age of society we live in.
Okay.
You see what I'm saying? That's why it's so important. And the fact of the matter is, if we're perfectly truthful about education, a lot of times it's not even the teacher that is the problem when it comes to integrating technology. It's the resources we have.
But the
It's the
teachers are
curriculum.
the teachers are saying
curriculum
they don't
that's
have
given
enough
us.
resources.
We don't have it.
The
So
teachers
what
say they
is
don't
a
have
what is
enough
a
there.
teacher going to do who does not have the things that are needed to transform the classroom the way they want to? You know how many times, you know, as a classroom teacher, no matter how much money, you know, that I think the most a school ever gave me was like $400. I thought I hit the jackpot when I got $400 at the beginning of the year for school
Right.
supplies. I could not believe it. I was like, oh my goodness, what am I about to do with $400 for my classroom?
Right.
I ran through that $400 so fast, and I still ended up spending $200 or $300 on supplies in order to make sure I had what I needed for my class. There was a time when I worked at another school district, and one year they gave us like $300. The next year they cut it in half.
Okay.
And so some people in the community knew I was an educator, and they knew I was very engaged with my students. I went in a grocery store one time, and the then manager came to me and said, "Could your students use some school supplies?" And I was like, absolutely. He gave me like $400 or $500 in school supplies, and I was able to build a school supply closet in my classroom. And initially it started off for my kids, but then kids from all over the schools started coming and saying, Ms. Mays, you know, I don't have such and such.
Right.
I heard that you have supplies. So we had a revolving door of school supplies for our kids. So I'm saying to say this, if things like school supplies are some things that as a teacher I had to struggle to get access to.
Mm-hmm.
My kids have to struggle to get access to.
Okay.
What do you think it looks like whenever we start talking about being able to equip our kids, not just with a computer or a laptop, but with the actual technology that they need to perform their best? We live in a STEM society. STEM is just now taking off, but do you know how many of our kids can already build a video game? My son is 7, and I've shared with you before that he is self-taught in regards to how to build a video game.
Right.
Because there's a web out there that has these resources. But I've had to be able to purchase the things he needs to continue to build and grow on that. And I just think to myself, what about the kids out there who have the same potential, the same wisdom, the same empowerment, and rely on school for it but don't have access to it?
But see, who's investing in the children? I have to ask, who's investing in the children? Who?
Not into,
Because we have a flawed system,
not
Jamie,
into
that we're dealing with.
schools, not into schools,
In the child.
actually into our children.
Well, see, that's why I come in with the FDK Foundation, because my mother invested in me.
Mm-hmm.
She saw what I was passionate about, whether it was dance, whatever it was. I was winning talent shows. I danced under Virgil Broussard. I danced under Diane Maroney. She saw and developed whatever it was, she developed my skill set. So that's why I'm doing what I am doing today. A lot of parents are not recognizing what talents and gifts that their children have because we're so distracted. That's what I think the problem is. We're too distracted as parents. Right now, technology has taken over. And what people fail to realize, by 2025 or 2030, I truly believe that school is going to be online. It's not going to be face-to-face interaction anymore. This is what I
would like
believe.
for that to happen.
But I'm going to tell you something. It's going to happen because everything is online. Whatever appeals to us is going to be online. That's the way to draw you in, just like a spider.
I believe that is definitely one of the missions. I don't know how
That's the
successful I don't know how successful it may necessarily be. And I will say this. I too was a person that was invested in, and I've shared this before.
Yeah.
Growing up in the housing projects, we definitely didn't have a lot of money.
Okay.
So it wasn't just about what my mom was doing, because sometimes my mom just wasn't able to. She didn't have it. Mm-hmm. My church invested in me.
You
My
see what I'm
teachers
saying?
invested in me.
Wow. It's something you said, the
Community-based
church.
organizations.
Yeah.
I share this story all the time about my senior year of high school when I won the state public speaking contest for Beta Club, which meant I qualified to go to a national conference.
Right.
And I'll never forget, my Beta Club sponsor came to me and asked me, was I interested in going? It didn't even cross my mind to believe that I could possibly go, because I knew that living in the housing projects, we had no money. We didn't even have a car. And so I remember I was like, well, yeah, it would have been cool to go to Cincinnati, Ohio, but I don't have the money to do that. She said, I didn't ask you that part. I asked you, do you want to go?
But that's because she believed in you. You had people that cared.
Exactly.
Jamie.
I said I would like to go.
People cared back then.
And so she did the footwork. She did not get paid for this.
Mm-hmm.
There was
Volunteer.
no extra pay. She did the footwork, went to 2 community organizations, told them about me, told them what I was doing. I delivered my speech to those 2 organizations, and they paid for my trip, which was over $2,000. My church then took up an offering so that I had spending money. And don't get it twisted. I was a hustler. I was doing hair. I was babysitting. I was cleaning houses.
Right.
So between the money my church had and the money that I had saved up, I was able to get all the things that I needed. And I went to Cincinnati, Ohio, and ended up placing 4th in the nation for public speaking. And it was like 50 of us. It was 1 or 2 kids from each state. And so when we talk about investments, that wasn't the only time. Like, by the time my community knew how serious I was about speaking and how passionate I was about it, it was nothing for my pastor to sign me some money, members of the church to give me some money. If I had a trip coming up, there were 2 or 3 occasions where I was put in the center of the church and they took up an offering. My auntie gave a wiener roast and put flyers around the neighborhood, and all the money she made that night went to my field trip.
But do you understand what you're saying, though?
And that's why I say it's not just a singular thing that we can talk about, which is when you ask me why I became an educator, is because I felt I had a responsibility to become part of the solution, just as people were part of the solution for me.
But see, that's the thing. You just said something. People were a part of your solution. Back then, people were gregarious. People were understanding. It took a village back then. If you went and did something, your neighbor was going to say, Jamie was outside doing this and that. People really cared. They valued the child. They valued themselves. It's not like that anymore. We have to get back to the basics. That's what I believe. We have to get back to the old drawing board. So you started a group called Teacher One-on-One.
Teacher Talk One-on-One.
Okay. Tell me, why did you come up with that?
So I actually developed the concept for Teacher Talk One-on-One about 4.5 years ago, maybe almost 5.
Why?
At this time, I was working on my education specialist degree, and I was really taking time to research what is causing a disconnect between our students and our teachers. I was also working in an environment, in a school where I constantly had teachers in my classroom talking to me about how distressed and overwhelmed they felt.
Now wait right there.
And
pause for the cause. Why would the teachers be overwhelmed? Why? No, seriously. Why are our teachers overwhelmed? The listeners need to know, because they're not going back. The teachers are not returning back to the classroom.
The list goes on.
Why are they overwhelmed? Why are they burned out? Why are they tired?
We can talk about.
We're going to also talk about this one thing. I went to Grambling State's game. I was talking to a veteran teacher, 25, 30 years. She said she's retired. They asked her to come back. Yes. She said H, no.
Yes.
Her words were H, no.
Yes.
I asked her one question.
Yes, I'm not surprised.
Now I'm going to go right here, and I'm going to need you to help me. I said, what ethnicity were you teaching? She said, Black. I said, okay. I said, was that a problem? She said it was. And that's something that they don't want to touch on. Because from what she told me, and she's in Atlanta, she said it's just like it's a disconnect. They're no longer interested. She had to fight. A student jumped her. And I know that happened to you as well. And I really want you I know you were attacked. So I really want you to kind of hone in on what happened to you from that aspect too. But also talk about those teachers that are tired.
So I'm going to start by this. So there are so many things that you said here, and this is such a deep,
It is.
both a deep
Raw and
and
uncut.
a broad topic.
It is.
Okay? Because we could talk about specifically, like specific topics regarding why teachers don't want to come back all day.
Yeah.
But we'll start by saying when we talk about exhaustion, a lot of times people believe that when a teacher clocks out, that's it.
They got to go home.
That's not it. As an English teacher, people will know that your children are required to write papers for me, and I don't know why they would think that I can grade 115, 150, 180 papers in 2 days.
Right.
Especially not throughout the teacher's day. So having to take those papers home and try
Right.
to grade them. Having to try to figure out if your kids are not, so here, especially in Louisiana and across the country, right, you now have performance standards.
Okay.
You are judged based on those performance standards. You can be fired for not meeting those performance standards. So a new level of pressure is added because I have this group of kids that I don't know. This is my first time teaching them. And now I've been told that regardless of how they come in this classroom, I better make sure that I meet this learning goal by the end of the year for them. And as a teacher, the better you perform, the higher the responsibility for you each year, even though your group of students will change.
So you got all this extra work and you're
all
not
of
even
this
getting paid,
extra work.
but you're not even getting paid for that.
And no, you do not. Now, this is just basic. These are basic class requirements, okay? So in addition to your lesson plans, in addition to, I hope you get to have a little piece of a personal life outside of school, but many people do not. This is in addition to staff meetings. This is in addition to what we have to
What's
do
that
now.
development? What is that?
The staff meetings
Professional,
and professional development. This is in addition to what we have to have now are frequent pew drills.
Okay.
We can't say too many of those words, and it'll cut us off. For pew drills,
Right.
which are very serious now. So it's no longer just we do it just in case. We do it because it's real, and we do it because you don't know when it can happen. The workload is just unending, and this is one of the other mistakes that is often out there. People think, oh, when the summer comes, teachers are just free and hunky dory, but if your state is constantly changing curriculum.
Talk about
Guess what you have to do during the summer? The understanding that curriculum will not happen by itself. You have to study that curriculum.
You have to study.
You have to learn that curriculum. Do you know how many teachers go to workshops during the summer?
Yeah.
You know how many teachers are going to conferences
So really,
during the
teachers
summer?
don't get no time off.
So it's really no time off,
You don't get no
despite
time
what
off.
people tell us. And understand this: the summer is not to relax and chill. The summer is for you to recoup from a year that has been so demanding that you are just many times worn out by the end. And I think that people vastly underestimate, like, it was funny to listen to how people would be so uptight about having to take care of their 1 or 2 kids at home during the pandemic virtually. And I'm like, girl, we do this with our eyes closed with 25, 30 kids per class if you teach high school 6 times a day. If you teach junior high 6 times a day, if you teach in elementary, many of those kids are switching classrooms down. So you are teaching easily around 100 kids per day.
Right.
And having to manage everything from emotional issues
Y'all listen,
to home issues to academic issues.
And marital issues.
And what those are
All
home
that's a
issues.
part of it.
And
That's it.
I think one of the things that we often forget is that when those kids come to school, parents, they're not leaving the baggage that's going on at home at the house.
They bringing it straight to the teacher.
It comes to the classroom as well.
And they're going to tell it.
So we have to also try to figure out why little Bob won't sit up in class. Why is Keisha always tired?
Yeah.
Why is
She up all
Angela
night.
always sick? Why can't Adam get his homework done? We have to figure out all these things that sometimes seem like it's simplistic in answer, but really complex, because it's not so easy whenever you have kids that you know for a fact face some situations that are not their fault. And so for the teacher, it's not just we're checking papers and we're managing. There are a lot of things that go into that. Now, do we have people out there that absolutely lack compassion? Absolutely. By all means, you know, I have given many workshops about teachers that have to re-strategize how you approach the classroom.
That's right.
And the energy and compassion you have as a teacher. So by all means, we understand that there's an exception to that. But reality is that many people who come into the teaching profession are compassionate people. They are empaths who have a love for children,
They do.
who have a heart towards service, and they are used, abused, and stressed.
And they working 7 jobs in
and
one.
they still work, and it's working 7
y'all
jobs in one.
So you're the counselor,
And now
you're the babysitter, you're the mental health specialist. Now you're the life coach.
And many times you have a
You're the
side
mother,
hustle.
the father.
Exactly.
You know, that's 6.
Exactly. At least,
And
at
then
least
y'all
part
come,
of the day.
and now y'all the dietitians because you coming with food.
You coming with.
Because the children are not saying,
Let me
you know
tell
what,
you
I didn't
something.
eat breakfast this morning.
I used to have kids that would literally come to me like every day. Honey, I couldn't pull
Lunch
out
money.
anything.
Money.
Food mismatch.
Tampons. I mean, just be honest. Personal items,
I
talk
had a
about it.
drawer where I kept my pads, my tampons in my drawer for my young
Wow.
girls. So I had drawers that I kept those items in. And so when you talk about all those things, absolutely, like those are the responsibilities that you have as an educator that people sometimes forget comes with it. And so
And y'all
the
are so
stress of the
overlooked,
job.
though. Y'all are so overlooked.
Oh my goodness.
And underpaid. Can I say that?
And underpaid. And this is the thing. This is the thing, though, that I have to tell people. Because as we get to the part where we will talk about why people are leaving, talking about pay is the dead horse that people get to beat because it's barely changing. So we can beat the dead horse of pay as much as we want to because it keeps us from actually having to deal with the real problems of education. As teachers, most of us know when we come in that this is a low-paying job. Teachers' pay has been horrible since before time. I've talked to old teachers that told me when they first started teaching, they made $12,000 a year.
Yeah.
So we are already familiar with this, but there are bigger issues and more serious issues that our school system doesn't want to be accountable for. And if those issues would be dealt with, it would alleviate a lot of the stress and pressure that so many teachers have to deal with each day.
So, Jamie, you proposed a bill.
Yes.
Did you not?
Yes.
So you proposed a bill to help teachers and the teacher shortage.
Yes.
What happened?
So the bill that I proposed was so it was about providing mental health training
And
that
it
is
so
educator
needed.
specified twice a year, and requiring that schools provide this so that teachers are taught techniques for managing stress, relaxation. They're given resources to know when to reach out to somebody, when you should be concerned about yourself. I also requested that posters be put in schools, in teachers' lounge, just like those minimum wage and things like that posters they have. So we would have one that would be targeting mental health, and they would be required to be visible in at least 2 places in each school.
Because it's just like war in the schools now. I mean, they got
so
PTSD. I hate to say it. I hate to say it, but most teachers,
We'll talk about that in a minute.
they're dealing with it.
So it would put the resources right there at the hands for teachers to have immediate support. And it would, in my opinion, it would also encourage our administrative teams to be more actively engaged in providing support for our teachers.
So you don't believe that there's any support emotionally for our teachers?
There are some schools that are doing a good job, but collectively, our school doesn't even want to have the conversation. I pulled up the statistics. So first of all, when I first started working on developing Teacher Talk 101, which was to target the emotional support needs of teachers, I started by putting out a questionnaire of my own, asking teachers, have they experienced stress, depression, are you on meds as a teacher, all these types of things.
Right.
And I got back a plethora of answers. And this is before I even knew that I would end up in a situation worse
And we
than
ready
the
for you to
people
discuss
that I
Yeah.
was trying to help. I also pulled up articles, and I will never forget reading an article that said nearly 50% of teachers have stress-related health problems. So everything from heart problems to being on medicines that help them manage the stress, to other health issues that stem from being stressed. And I remember posing the question in my research, asking people, have their doctors ever recommended that they take time off from work?
Sure.
And having people say yes, and then having people also admit in the same breath that they couldn't afford to do it because their job didn't give them resources to be able to do it, or did not take mental health or emotional wellness as a serious issue.
But see, so, and even if they did attempt to take just a little small break from school.
Oh, you
Substitutes. Well, not just not just backlash.
Backlash.
But substitutes not even wanting to come into the school system. So this is really a little deeper than that. Because the substitutes, from what I heard, are only being paid barely $1,200 per month that they're getting once a month. Mind you, they have to do the planning. They're doing everything that a teacher does. And they're not even qualified for the position. But they're coming in, and then they're totally disrespected by not just the children, but the administration as well. It's just a whole lot of disrespect all around.
Well, it depends on if you have a short-term sub or a long-term. Your short-term subs, typically your teacher has put your lesson plans in place. But if you have a long-term situation they may be able to, the teacher may be able to start the lesson plans, but sometimes you may not be able to gauge what can happen longer than 30 days out. The other problem you have is that at the end of the day, a substitute is just that, a substitute. So they don't have the same professional training in some cases, or they just didn't sign up for that. They did not sign up to come in to have to be the teacher and feel all of those very demanding tasks. So that's a part of it as well. Like, sometimes they're just not equipped to do it. And so that's part of what we're seeing with the teacher shortage, is that we are also in a massive substitute teacher shortage that is also related to the fact that school violence has increased. And if teachers don't have support, what support do you think that a lot of our substitutes feel? They also don't feel support. So this is something that they choose to do in many cases. Right. You know, if they can land a job doing something else, quite often what we're seeing right now is people will make that decision. And we keep on trying to throw money away like that's the sole solution. But the bottom line is, what's going on in education is not one. If it could be changed by education, it would have been changed. I mean, changed by money, it would have been changed a long time ago. We keep throwing money at it like it can fix it, but money is not the main problem. It's much bigger.
What about these failing schools? They have a lot of failing schools.
Well, I mean, it's pretty much just a lot of the same thing, right? Giving the resources that the school needs, providing teachers with the resources they need to be engaged, providing access to, and this is the thing, we can talk about building relationships with parents. And one of the workshops that I provided was about how you can build a meaningful relationship with a parent in only a short amount of time. Okay. So if you see them in a store, what are some small, quick things you can do to impact the parent that you've been seeking to connect with, so that it does not become overwhelming on you as a teacher, right? And it makes an impact in your classroom that you have really desired to see. So that's one of the conversations I've been having for a long time. But the truth of the matter is, like, there's not a lot of time allotted where teachers can really seek to go out there and rebuild with our families. That has to be a community initiative. Well, that has to be a community-based. You cannot. We have things called community stakeholders. You know, it cannot just be a one group act. The process of education involves a community itself that is also engaged. That's the way that you'll have to push change to happen.
Well, I tell you what, you know, my husband is on the school board, and, you know, he brought about the parental involvement, and I know without a shadow of a doubt that there was not a lot of parental involvement. And that was for the entire community. Now, that's not to say that parents were not working late at night, but, you know, some people were just tired. You know, they were unable to come to the meetings. But there again, we make time for everything else. Can I say that? You have to make time for your child's education. You have to make time for investing in your child. You know, the thing is, you know, if we look back in time, that wasn't a time that was missed that you didn't see a parent at a PTA meeting. When I was growing up, you saw parents at PTA meetings. You saw parents in the classroom. You saw parents disciplining their children. There was also corporal punishment. So I now need to ask this question. Do you think there's a need for corporal punishment?
Baby, I'm about to shake the room with this. My answer would be no.
Tell me why.
Not in the school. I don't believe
Tell me why.
It
it was in my school as elementary.
There are a couple of different things I will say about this. Number one, when we talk about the fact that back in the day, we had parents doing this, we had parents doing that.
That's right.
Times have changed.
I agree.
Bills have increased, pay has not. We also need to understand this. Just because parents were present does not mean there was not trauma in that house.
Okay, so then you got
And
to get on the mental
what
health.
we have is a lot of trauma that's going from generation to generation as well.
So that's a curse.
We have several parents that also had traumatic experiences within the education system, which is another workshop that I've talked about. And because those parents have had traumatic experiences in education, often we think, and I remember making this statement, that our responsibility is to educate children when actually we are educating an entire family.
Okay.
And that's the truth. And that's how we have to handle that, right? And so not taking it personal whenever little Jimmy's mama is not the type that's involved. We got parents at work. We have parents that are we have parents that are tired. We have all those things, but we also have parents who have been through their own set of traumas.
And I
trauma that is
understand.
not educated related is so overwhelming that they are not functioning the way they need to. I say this as a child that actually grew up through a traumatic experience, where my mom was trying her best to navigate the challenges she had before her,
right?
And she had a desire to be a great parent, and she actually, despite the challenges, she did some great things, like teach me how to read early and read with me all the time,
right?
However, I still would not deny that there are many people who could not have been able to manage it as my mom did, right? And so as I got into the classroom deeper, and I realized that when I would go to the house sometimes and meet parents, they were the most wonderful people when I came into their space.
Yeah, we know how to put on the
that was the way to actually get them up to the school.
Right.
And sometimes that was the way to actually get them to talk about what was going on. And so, we do have people that just have their priorities all messed up. By all means, I do not play the game like there are not people out there who just have the game mixed up.
Right.
But I think that we have to also assess what may be happening, and sometimes try to figure out, have I exhausted what could be possibly going on? And then at the end, if you have parents who just don't have a desire to be involved, that's just what it is. Yeah. We do have that problem where people have to reassess what their priorities are. I will also say that, at the end of the day, we have to also think to ourselves, have I given my best with what I have? Have I given my best with what I have? I know because the classroom can be so exhausting, a lot of us get worn out.
Teachers are burned out.
And so how is it that I can figure out how I can get more rest? How my schedule can be adjusted? And the sad part about it is, I used to say, well, we can do A, B, C, D, E, F, G. But in a season where we have post-pandemic trauma,
right,
where we have kids that have lost one or both caregivers, where we have educators who have lost family members, we have educators that have long-term health challenges as a result of COVID. It becomes, when do we have people that are above us and attached to education showing some type of compassion and concern and coming to the table and saying, we need to intercede and listen to what our teachers are saying to us because they're there,
right,
to what our parents are saying they need because they have the kids,
right,
and what our community is telling us about why they aren't as engaged because they have the resources. They have the resources. Several of the resources we need might not specifically be found in the school board. I remember I was talking about how we used to have motivational speakers back in the day at our school.
So did we.
But sponsors from the community, our big businesses, were the ones that paid for those things. All the years that I've been a teacher, I think maybe once or twice out of 13 years, I saw us have a school event where a community-based organization came in as a partner under it. And they're there. There are more tax write-offs than ever.
Right.
So why aren't we able to access that more to get in on this partnership with education? So that's why I always say, if we talk about why teachers are leaving, it's because teachers are just at the point where we're worn out. We're seeing declines in health. We're seeing lack of support.
No support.
We're not seeing the results that we believe our kids can achieve, and we are held accountable. And so at the end of the day, the only person that pays the price is the teacher.
Wow.
Now, futuristically, our kids end up paying the price.
That's right,
too.
they are.
Do you see what I'm
They
saying?
are.
But immediately at the end of the year, it's the teacher who bears the weight of disappointment. Because don't think for 1 minute that a teacher who does not see their students perform the way they desire for them to, that teacher is okay with that. We're never okay with that. Who wants to go into a job, clock in all your hours, give your best, and not see success happen?
That's right.
There's nobody who wants that. We take that very personal, to the point where these are the things that have teachers going into the doctor saying, I think my blood pressure is up. I can't sleep at night.
Right.
I'm restless. These are the things that are happening aside from the violence.
Okay, so Jamie, now you said everything with exceedingly great joy. I saw you smiling. You love your children. You love your parents. She loves the parents. She loves the children. But something happened to you in the classroom.
Yeah.
That caused you not to go back.
Yeah.
Into the teaching profession.
Yes.
Because we already know that some parents believe their children. Yeah. They don't believe the teacher. You know, little Johnny gets smart with you at home. So surely he gonna get smart with Miss Jamie. Yeah. You know, he might want to pop off with you every now and again. Yeah. So he gonna pop off. You know, you better not touch me. Yeah. You better not take my cell phone.
Yes.
So
yes.
We find out that you were held hostage for 3 years.
Yes.
Through the court system.
Yes.
But something happened to you in the classroom, and looked like the administrator did nothing about it. You were attacked.
Yes.
And see, I know God didn't call me to teach. I know without a shadow. He didn't call me to teach.
Yes.
Because I would lay hands in the spirit, but I would not let a child put their hands on me.
Yeah.
But for one, because you're not my mother. but something about it's this violence is at an all-time high. Right. Children are bringing guns to the school now. Mm-hmm. Because they're fearing for their lives. We have gangs in the school. Mm-hmm. We have teachers that fear the children. Mm-hmm. We really might as well say the parents scared of the kids.
Oh, definitely.
Now, when we was coming up, our mamas put that fear in us.
100%, yes.
They didn't play with us.
I did not play with my mother.
Yeah, when the street lights came on, we was in there before they came on.
Right.
Your street, my baby, what you want? The child talking back to you. The child is checking you. Right. So, tell us about what happened when you were attacked by a student and what caused you not to return back to the classroom.
Okay. So, of course, this has been a hard situation to talk about.
I know it.
And this has been a long journey, and it has gone on for a while. In early 2019, I was assaulted by a student. Who
I just had to have a breather.
Ran down a hallway and jumped on me from the back. And it's so funny because I hear a lot of people say exactly what you say, like, you know, I could never let a child put their hands on me.
But you would jump from the back.
Right. And to be perfectly honest with you, I can't tell you that I would have hit a student back. No, you know what I'm saying?
Not actually hit, but defend yourself.
Right.
At least
so I didn't even have any space to defend myself because
right.
I never saw it coming. I didn't hear. I did, you know, and I was doing what I was supposed to do as an educator. So I was assaulted by a student and suffered some pretty serious injuries.
I know.
And you know, there are not a lot of things that shake me to the core. But that did. And
did you reach a breaking point? Was that it?
I really can't tell you if I had a breaking point because I was so discombobulated. I was so shocked. I immediately started having traumatic experiences as a result. So we're talking about anxiety.
Something you never had.
Nothing, never had. Had not experienced anxiety.
Jumped to the back and just fell to the floor, jumped to the back and was being punched.
Right, was being punched.
Oh, my.
You know, and basically after several visits for both my physical treatments, and I don't want to go into all of the details, but after treatments for my physical injuries, and even visiting with the doctor, he was like,
right.
I think you need to go in for a mental health evaluation.
Oh, wow.
Because every time you come and you have to talk about it, it just takes a toll on you.
You go to cry.
So he started asking me, you know, how are you resting? You know, it's you know, how are you feeling? And the truth was that I wasn't sleeping at all. So, you know, time goes on, and that was a very tumultuous experience. I was already having to fight with them for medical treatment. As a teacher who was literally abiding by the book. It literally said in the handbook, as an educator, anytime you see children, it is your responsibility to ensure that you follow your teacher duties.
That's right.
Okay? And so I watched another teacher stand in the hallway looking at our children like they didn't care, and, you know, just standing to the side. So I thought to myself, I see my kids down there. Let's send them on where they need to go. You know, let's send them on. And so it kind of just went left from there. And I'm thankful for my students because my kids tried to check on me. So, and I want to clarify that because that's one of the problems we run into. We have all these really wonderful kids with great potential, and then we have these struggle issues going on, and we're not getting the balance and support we need to manage all of that. So I ended up being forced to return. I was still trying to request assistance. They were denying me medical treatment.
Did you get pay?
They were denying me. So at that time, yes.
Okay.
And so, but it took a while to even get all of those things in place. But I was still trying to beg them to give me the help that I needed in terms of my medical treatment. And they were refusing to send me in for emotional health support.
Wow.
They would not, even though they had been contacted several times by their doctor. And so I was forced to go back that fall. And I was still just having a hard time imagining having to go back into the atmosphere. I was nervous. It was a very chaotic environment. It was a very violent environment.
Right.
And that was not anything new. That, you know, so I felt on edge, and physically I was still not back to my normal health. I was having back issues. I could not walk upstairs. I could not stand up and teach. And I was still forced. I literally had received phone calls and letters saying, you better come back.
Even after you were attacked by a student?
Yes.
Going through physical pain, mental.
I returned, and you know, because this is the thing. It's easy for people to say what you would and would not do till you're in that situation where you feel like you have defied the odds, you beat the projects, you got your education, you played by the book, you take on a career that is based on helping others, you're an entrepreneur, you're pursuing a degree, you're a mom, you're trying to do the things that you need to do. So you are fearful that you can lose these things because that you are being threatened, you are being told you have to come.
Not backing you at all.
And so I requested help, I requested support, I requested all these things, and I was denied. And after being there for less than maybe a month, or maybe right at a month, on September 16th, 2019, later that same year, I had another issue where a student threatened me. Just because he was upset. He got mad.
And they do.
Didn't want to listen.
That's it.
The kids were like, stop acting like that.
And they're always on edge.
And what really upset me was when he was sent back to me. And I got...
The child threatened you, and they put him back in your classroom?
He was sent back to me, and I was already not feeling comfortable. Long story short, so I ended up saying to them, I'm not going to be able to do this. I can't do this. I'm literally having to go back and forth with admin to remove him. Please put him in another class. But nobody was trying to hear me. Okay? And so, I get upset, of course, and I'm like, I just need a moment to try to gather myself. And long story short, ended up going to the restroom where a door fell on me.
Okay. It wasn't your fault.
My head open.
Okay.
And when the door fell on me, I felt a shift in my body.
Okay.
And I started crying. I couldn't even see straight. And I come out, and one of my colleagues sees me in the hall. He's like, oh, my God, are you telling me that they didn't fix that door?
Okay, so then, Jamie, what happened?
So I ended up having to go to the hospital where they had to stitch. So they used the bonding glue.
They pieced it
and
together.
honey, I had what these kids call a goose head or a golf ball on my forehead. And I complained about the back pain for a while, and I just kept getting told, you gotta try to do this, you gotta try to do that, you gotta try to do this. And I'm like, I am in excruciating pain. I was not given any support. I was denied income. I was denied doctor's visits.
So wait a minute. So you were denied the doctor visits. Okay. No support. Because, see, this is how we go in this. From a teacher's perspective.
From a teacher's perspective.
Okay, so
and
no
I want
support.
people to understand this is not uncommon. No support.
No support.
This went on
no emotional support.
None. And it was recommended by then. I started to seek my own medical support. So I started going under my insurance because I was in so much pain with my back.
And you were not compensated?
I was not compensated.
Okay.
So I started on my own. And and that's when the doctors, the new doctor I went to recommended, because my personal doctor as well was extremely concerned.
Right.
And that doctor recommended that I go in to have an MRI, an exam on my arm for all of the pain that I was going through. And he also asked about how was I feeling emotionally. And I said, I'm just really in distress. This whole thing has been overwhelming.
Yes, it has.
And, long story short, when I got the MRI, that's when we found out that I had herniated disc in my back.
So y'all, look, I know we've been doing a heck of a lot of talking when it comes to our teachers not returning to the classroom. We have a veteran teacher here, a learning strategist, okay? This woman is telling us that she was attacked by a student. She talked about parental involvement. She says it says lack of support, emotional support for the teachers. People are not concerned. Then on top of that, they didn't even listen to what she had to say. They put the same child back in the classroom with her. What is the solution?
And I had a panic
What
attack. So
is the solution? Because I feel in my spirit that public schools is about to be virtual education. I just hate to say it. That's what it's about. If we look at the signs of the time, that's where it's going. They put out social media. It not only grabbed our attention, it grabs our children's attention. You have teachers that are now doing TikToks in the class, and we're not knocking it at all. But y'all are going viral on what you're doing in the classrooms, and the children are basically suffering. Now, there's one thing I wanted to touch on involving the black community. And I said I wasn't going to say nothing, but it wouldn't be me not to. I feel like majority of our black children are suffering from an identity crisis. This right here, it affects me in many more ways than one. They don't want to talk about the critical race theory. You know, I had to say it.
You already know how I feel.
I already know because you do have a minor in African American studies. Our children don't even know what to identify, how to identify with themselves, because they really don't have a curriculum that talks about black history.
No, they don't.
Not at all.
And
they want to call it critical. They want to say it's critical. But it's critical that it be taught.
Right.
Seriously. Because if you ask a child now in the classroom, who is Mary McLeod Bethune? Or who is Sojourner Truth?
Right.
If you ask these children, who is Harriet Tubman?
Right.
You know, if you ask these children, who are some of these pioneers? They'll say, well, I don't know. But they don't know. When we were in school, we were taught this.
Right.
Today, the children do not know how to identify.
Now, please understand that when we were in school, because a lot of this also depends on what environment you grew up in.
Yeah, I agree.
Came from a town that was predominantly white. So my school was not teaching this.
Well, Emma J. Brown and Grambling was.
My mom taught this. My church taught this. Our community organizations taught this.
They did teach that.
So I think we have to also understand that education was never made by design to be inclusive of the black community.
No, and it wasn't. I know we have to go there, but I need y'all to understand what we're saying right now.
And because it was never designed for that factor, our kids have not had the opportunity to really see themselves incorporated, except for the one or two people they want to talk about.
So the educational system has failed.
Oh, Lord, has largely failed in many ways, because if you're not going to be the one that has the ambition to study and research it for yourself, or have parents to help you, or community to help you, you won't be able to see yourself in that. And that was, I'll openly talk about this. That's, that was kind of, if you want to talk about what they used to always ask, well, And you know, Miss Mays, we heard you doing a little Black History segment. Yes, I am. Every Friday in February, I teach my kids about a different era of Black history.
That's right.
Can my school? I want to come in and ask you guys, can we have a soul food festival for Black History Month this year? So but check this out. As a Black teacher, it's hard to have those conversations in spaces, and not just Black spaces. Right. Not just white spaces, in all spaces. It's hard to go ask, because you get the side eye when you come in and say, we need to do some identity work. And check this out. This is the misconception. When we talk about inclusivity in education, when we talk about diversity, equity, inclusion, when we talk about Black history and Black culture, the biggest misconception is that only affects Black people.
It does not.
The gift and experience and journey of Black people is a gift to humanity.
That's it.
Because the work that our people did has benefited humanity.
That's right.
And so when we talk about people like Harriet Tubman, when we talk about people like Sojourner Truth, when we talk about Medgar Evers, all of these people, these are people who can serve as an influence to any child that is facing an obstacle.
On that influence.
But we have decided to say that this is particularly for Black people when it's not. The work that, but when our people were working in the fields, that wasn't for Black people.
Right.
When our people were running for freedom, that might have been for Black people, but it was to get toward freedom, and we were running from oppressive and abusive experiences.
Yeah.
Therefore, every child needs to understand how significant and impactful the Black experience can be to anybody. And this is why people always talk about how much love they feel whenever they encounter the warmth of a soul food kitchen or a supportive Black woman.
Love.
Because it is a part of the culture we've had generationally.
And it's a part of our history.
And so we should be included in spaces where we have been the ones to put in the footwork in this country.
Exactly.
Most of the things that exist in this country, better yet in this world, would not be here if it was not for the ingenuity of Black enslaved people.
That's right.
And many things we didn't even get credit for, but we still did what? Did the work, completed the task to do what? Try to show ourselves approved over and over again. Without complaint. But with a constant hope and prayer that the next generation will have a better opportunity.
Yeah.
And so we don't have any reason that our story should not be inclusive. Yeah. And I will say it time and time again, we have got to stop teaching kids that Black history matters to Black people, because the story and journey of Black people is inspiring to anybody.
Wow.
It's influential to anybody. It's influential to kids of any race.
That's right. That's right.
And because that is the misconception that we teach children, whenever, I've taught in schools that are mixed as well, Black and white children. And I remember having kids in my class who literally said to me, Miss Mays, this is the first time we've ever learned about so many Black writers.
I know. And I've had some people tell me that. And I had so many white students say that.
And I said, well, guess that.
And they never knew.
I said, well, it'll be okay. This is probably the only year you might have this experience.
Yeah.
But by the end of the year, my students have been transformed because they have learned about stories of people they didn't know.
That's right.
And I said, the funny thing is, it's not that you've learned about so many Black people, it's that you just haven't been influenced by majority white writers. Amy Tan is Asian. The father of the haiku poetry is Asian.
Right.
Let's see, the woman that worked, Sandra Cisneros is Hispanic. We have all these different, and these are all people that I've taught throughout my lessons.
Yeah.
And so when it comes to real diversity, sometimes you feel like if your story has not been the forefront and center, you're just not used to that. That's why we don't just have to change the dynamics of education. Now, our Black children are primary because they are suffering the most.
They are.
But the truth about society is we have to stop teaching a lesson that it is a Black benefit. Because as long as we allow people to continue to say that, they will minimalize the work of our people and the value of Black history and culture.
Right. We got to teach the truth.
Teach the truth. 100%.
You understand everything? What she really said.
100% true.
You have to teach the truth. And the curriculum has to change.
It has to change.
Sorry.
It's no lie about that.
The curriculum has to change. I hope y'all grasp that. Y'all look, Jamie Mays came on here and did exactly what she was supposed to do. She talked about everything from a teacher's aspect, from a teacher's perspective, mother's perspective. She went all the way in from the classroom, even into the hospital, because that's where she ended up landed, even into the courtroom. So I want you to know on tonight that we are concerned about you as teachers. What you need to do as a teacher, go to your administration. Tell them exactly how you feel. We don't want you to have to go to the doctor. If you're going to have these different developments, you know, trainings, y'all gonna have to start speaking up. Because at the end of the day, we do need you. A lot of mothers, a lot of fathers are entirely too busy. They're working 8 to 5s to put food on the table, to keep shelter over their children's heads. And you are the ones that we need. Because right now, y'all are the counselors. Y'all are the doctors in the classroom. Y'all are. And if didn't nobody else say it tonight, I love teachers. And I'm always on your side. Every time my child say, my teacher, I said, let me go holler at your teacher. Because your teacher is a professional. She has her degrees. You trying to get yours. So I'm always be on the teacher side. I learned that as a child. Jamie, I don't know if we had any questions on tonight. And you go ahead. Go ahead. Yes, ma'am. Please.
Is that also understand this, that just because our parents are preoccupied and you have responsibilities, that does not mean you cannot be an advocate for the educational system.
I agree.
The teacher voice alone is not enough. Changes because if it was, the work that has been done through our unions would change the game. So we have to see our community stakeholders get involved with education.
Okay.
We have to see our parents. Look, we live in a technology age. You can send an email. You can text your leadership. There are a million different things that you can do to ensure your voice is heard.
Yes, ma'am.
But you can stand in solidarity with our educators, because it is a matter that is about community holders, parents, and educators all working together.
So we got to unify.
But exactly, the call to action cannot just be done by one.
And
not
I
for
totally
the sake
agree
of
with
our
that.
kids, not for the sake of seeing change, and not for the sake of our community.
I totally agree with Miss Mays on that one. I hope you guys enjoyed this segment. As for parents, we need you to get more involved. I mean, Jamie just said it. It's just not the teachers. We need the community. We need the stakeholders. We need all of you all to come together, and we have to unify and be on one accord when it comes to our children's education. I don't know if there were any comments or questions that were out there. Jamie, did you want to look? Did you? Rick Salisbury? Called on my husband because normally we have some questions.
And I think that it's also, just while we're waiting on him, you know, it's just also important for us to be mindful that the future depends on us. Our children, no matter how independent and different this generation seems, they are depending on us to speak up and to teach them how to be advocates.
Right.
And we show them how to be advocates by modeling a system of support.
That's right.
A community of unity.
Yeah. We
model those things for them so that then they understand how to continue those legacies.
And I want you to speak on one more thing, because I'm going to have, what is she? A life coach. She's a mental health specialist that's coming on next week. A lot of trauma in the household. You know, they always say that we kind of sweep everything under the rug.
I wouldn't say that we sweep everything under the rug. I believe that...
Well, what stays in our house, whatever goes on in our house, what's the saying? It stays in our house.
Well, of course, and you know, this takes us into another direction.
Yes, it does. But we're going to talk about it next week.
Black trauma, right? Yeah. And the fact that the history behind many of the practices that we still have in our households today are based on what our people have gone through historically.
Yeah, I agree.
And the trauma, and this is yet one of the reasons that it's so important to explore Black stories.
Yeah,
to be inclusive of the Black community.
That's right.
Because we also have to continue to explore how we can reconcile many of the effects of the traumatic experiences we've had.
That's right.
And so even when we talk, it may seem simplistic in nature to just say, we tell our kids don't eat, but there are reasons why these types of practices are coming. And it's not because it's not, thank you. There is and the statistics say that we are disproportionately have our children placed in foster care because of issues like this. We're disproportionately arrested. We're disproportionately given resources that are needed to assist us.
Right.
So it's not so simple. We look at what happened to us every single time as a culture we tried to achieve something, how things were stripped from under us.
Right.
So when we talk about those things, it has to be from a solution-based perspective, because if we continue to look at it from the perspective of we are just problematic, we do not give grace to our people to grow.
I know.
And there are reasons behind these things.
Yeah.
And we must explore them because we should be wanting to see our kids evolve.
That's right.
We should want to see our community evolve. And most importantly, we should want to see our people heal. Right? And that's a beautiful thing that we should be searching for.
See our people heal. Well, I hope you guys enjoyed this segment. I'm so glad that you tuned in on tonight. We're going to be back on Wednesday night at 8 o'clock with a mental health specialist. And she's going to talk about the trauma in households, not just in the black household, but in the white, because the suicide is at an all-time high, as so is the violence within our communities. And that's from black, brown, and white. So be sure to tune in next week. We're going to be speaking with none other than, what's your homegirl name?
Chastity Butler.
Chastity Butler. I hope you guys tune
She's
in.
Phenomenal.
Oh, I know she is. She's what I call a coach guru. So, yeah, expect her. Jamie, did you want to say anything else before and make sure you give your information out? Look, let me tell you, she's available for booking. She ready to come to your schools.
So
she has a
360. I work virtually right now. So I do not go, and I actually do not go to school. So, but I do virtual PDs. So I am available for that, virtual speaking engagements, diversity, equity, inclusion, how to shift the atmosphere for your educators and communities, and to talk about with your educators what literacy skills they can put into place to impact their students. So if you're interested in talking further about how to do a virtual workshop or a virtual conference, you can email me at jamiemaisaoe@gmail.com. You can go to my website, jamiemays.net. You can follow me on Instagram, author Jamie Mays, or Cooking with Fam.
Oh, I know, because I got to come back.
Page for me and my son. You can also follow me on YouTube, the Black Intellectualism Movement.
Yeah.
And we also have Cooking with Fam there as well, which is my son's channel. And you can follow me on TikTok, which is Author Jamie Mays.
And we're on, hello my TikTokers out there, because we're on TikTok Live.
Exactly. And you can follow me on Twitter, which is also at Author Jamie Mays. So connect with me. I love to keep talking with you, hear from you.
Look, and I'm asking this one question before she go. Will you return back to the classroom?
Oh no. Unfortunately, it's not a possibility. I loved my students. I love their leg of the journey, but unfortunately, it's just not possible for me. And it makes me emotional to even have to answer that, but
I know.
It's not. I like to think of it as saying that God is pushing me into a much bigger classroom.
Okay.
And
worldwide. Global classroom. So you heard it first right here on Fanyana Live with the THEE Jamie Mays.
Absolutely.
That's not returning back to the classroom. If you guys would like to be featured on Fanyana Live, be sure to inbox me. I would love to interview you, let you share your story on my platform. You continue to be blessed. I need my husband to come over here and hit this button. But anyway, thank you so much for tuning in. Jamie, I'm so excited. I'm so thankful you came out.
Thank you. Glad to come.
Wonderful conversation. You were so transparent.
You know, I try to keep it 100.
You did. And for TikTok, thank you so much for tuning in. I see y'all down there at the bottom.
Thank you for
we appreciate y'all. Be sure to follow me on Fanyana Live. I'm your artist. I'm your host. We like them loves. We love them likes. We love all that. Yes, indeed.
And we have some comments on TikTok.
I see some TikTok. You're definitely going to have to check out those comments on TikTok. Absolutely. And look like those are some educators. I mean, I can see a little bit. I ain't got my glasses on.
Look, you can see better than me, honey.
Yes, indeed. Thank you so much for tuning in, Facebook. Goodbye.